So today let's talk about the third house in Vedic astrology. So we have seen the first house, we have seen the second house. The first house is called as Tan Bhava, the second house is called as Dhan Bhava. In the same way, the third house is called as Sahaj Bhava or the Prakram Bhava. Sahaj means like original, something refined, something hereditary, and Prakram means valor, courage. So the third house in the Vedic astrology, it represents the courage of a person. It represents the will of a person to take fights, how well a person can take a fight, how well a person can survive struggle. And this is the reason the malefics like Saturn and Mars, they give very good results when they are placed in third house, because Mars is what? Mars is energy. Mars is the commander of the Kundali. Mars is Senapati. Mars is what? Mars is the Mars is fire. Mars is your willpower. Mars is your determination. So Mars gives you that willpower, that determination, and that courage to survive any struggle into your life, to survive hard times. Third house is also about the physical fitness of a person. If third house is influenced by good planets, the person will be physically stout, physically fit. This is also about the stability of your mind, because in Kala Purush Kundali, the zodiac sign which is given to third house is Gemini, and the lord of Gemini is Mercury. Mercury is what? Mercury is your brain, Mercury is your buddhi, Mercury is your capacity to distinguish between right and wrong. That's why third house also the significator of the stability of mind of a person. Third house is also about your hobbies, about your inclinations. Because now you see, in the first house you are born in this earth. In second house you learn, you attain some inclinations, like you are inclined to something, like if you are fond of plants, you are inclined to plants, then in third house that thing will develop more. Then your this fondness for plants will turn into a hobby, that is like gardening. Then third house is next to second house, then it is the amplified form of the second house, we can say that. This is the next version of the second house. This is this is the progressive version of second house. So if the second house is the house of speech, if the second house is the house of speech, then third house is the house of communication, that how well you will communicate. And that is why in Kala Purush Kundali, Gemini is the zodiac sign for this house, and lord of this house is Mercury. Because Mercury is what? Mercury is your capacity to distinguish between right and wrong. Mercury is your brain. Mercury is your logical explanation for things. Mercury is logical explanation for your every action. So from second house we see your speech, that how well you will express yourself. But from third house we see that how effectively you will communicate, whether your communication will have that tinge of we can say logic into it, whether your communication is logical, whether you are able to influence people through your communication or not. So that is seen from the third house. And now you see one thing, the third house is the house of your communication, then third house is also the house of your relationships, your relationship with your neighbors, your relationships with your relationship with your siblings. Because if your third house is influenced by benefic planets, then you will have uh, an effective communication, and then you will be able to express, you will be able to manage people through your communication. For instance, if your third house has the placement of moon into it, then there will be a calmness, there will be that calmness in your communication, the calmness of moon will be there in your communication. So this will not enrich people who will talk to you, and that will bring what? That will bring strength into your relationship. That's why the placement of moon is considered good in third house, because third house is the house of communication. Now, as I told you, the second house is the house of your taste, the house of your food habits. Then third house is, from third house we see the nature of food you will consume, what kind of food you will like. The third house is also the house of your education, early education. The third house is, as I said, the third house is the house of prakrama, prakrama bhav hai. Then third house is also the house of sports, you will be a good sportsman or not, that will be seen from the third house. The placement of Mars in third house makes a person a good sportsman. A benefic Mars in third house will make you a good sportsman, because Mars is the commander, Mars is energy, Mars is fire, Mars is destroyer of enemies, destroyer of your opponents. Now, in terms of medical astrology, the third house is the house of your what I can say, that third house is the house of your throat. The third house is the house of your shoulders. The third house is the house of your ears. From third house we see your ears, your shoulders, your cervical area. Your neck is also seen from third house. Lower part of your this oral cavity is also seen from third house. Your mental stability is also seen from third house. Your physical growth is also seen from third house. You know, as the lord of third house is this Mercury, so whether you will be a clever person or not, your cleverness, because a clever person is able to communicate well, so that is also seen from third house. Third house is also the house of your short journeys. Third house, as I said, the third house is the house of your courage. Then whether when we see that whether you will become an army officer or a police officer, then third house placement of planets in the third house is also seen, because to become army officer or a police officer, a man in uniform, you need to have courage. The third house is also the house of your good qualities. So the third house is one of the earth, this earth kama trikona. There are three houses in the kundali which are known as earth kama trikona. The first is the third house, second is the seventh house, and third is the 11th house. Earth kama trikona means the house of your desires. So third house is the first earth kama trikona, because now your mind have grown up to that stage that now it has started conceiving some desires into it. It has starting imagining some desires. Hence third house is the first earth kama trikona. It's your own, what I can say, selfishness, what your own desires are seen from third house, your aspirations are seen from third house. And that's why third house is very important house in the uh, birth chart of a person. The placement of planets in third house is very important if we want to see that whether a person is able to uh, survive a struggle or not. That is seen from the third house. How his relationship will be with his siblings, that is seen from third house. How will with the health of his ears, throat, shoulders, neck, bones, upper limbs is seen from third house. Stability of mind is seen from third house. Whether the person will be a sportsman, whether the person will be an army person, a man in a uniform, that is also seen from third house. Even the longevity of your parents is also seen from third house. Your tolerance is also seen from third house. So this is about the third house in the Vedic astrology.